I'm not going to follow all the links, but you will have access to this PowerPoint. I want you to click on the links. Most of us, I think 75%, think there's a really good chance we have ADHD. This is the students I had. Gathered demographics and the metadata. Only 25%, 27 actually, percent of my students are confident they don't have ADHD. This is relevant because this whole project is about how we interact with information and our brains working differently. I talk about scientific method. It's key to me. I do a survey on where they get the information. Spoiler alert, only 33% get their information from TV. 1 or like 2% get it from newspapers. Primarily, people are getting information from social media. Shared values. We picked a topic that would be engaging and authentic to all of us. We had narrowed down to religion, sex, politics, or climate change, and we picked the one that offended the fewest people, that was the safest, but something that touched all of our lives, that we all cared about or knew about. Here, evidence that climate change was the least dangerous. This project was inquiry-based learning. This gets everyone involved. We hold each other accountable, and it sets very few but very hard rules on making things ethical and thinking about cause and effect. It's problem solution. It's all about problem solving, which is critical thinking. I valued critical thinking. Now, the inspiration for this came from me going on Facebook. I don't go there very often, but they showed up about the same time. They're both on climate change. One I thought was awful, a primer in how to write a logically flawed argument. They had every logical flaw. False equivalencies, red herring, ad hominem attacks. The other one had hard data and stats. I found out they couldn't evaluate very well one from the other. There was one or two outliers that were good at it, but I had a lot of students, especially the ones who couldn't read very well, drifted towards what was easier to process. I believe that bad teachers answer questions that nobody asks, so I want to get students asking the right questions. Also, my sources came from, this project happened in spring 2017. Fake news was in the air, and this was funny. Poor Mark Zuckerberg dies at 42. Of course, you realize he's younger than 42, and that's the only guy that played him in the movie, and he's not dead. I have convergent goals, but my students have divergent research interests. Doing collaboration using inquiry-based methods allowed them to do authentic research and to follow what they found valuable, important to them. I'd like to thank JCC staff and collaborators. Jan and Christy Howell have been coming to my classes for years. Jessica Tipton responded on my teaching log how to better teach this, and this explains it. But she responds to questions I asked that I didn't learn the first time, and it allowed me to model the kind of collaboration I want my students to do. Also, Mark Swales, he taught me that every picture on the internet belongs to somebody. Chris McWard was so supportive, and we used the collaboration lab a lot. Mars Denton from VLM, one of the top 10 marketing firms in America, resonated with my students because she feels very passionately about, oddly enough, climate change. And what they actually, in the presentation she did, we had her for a little over an hour, and she talked about marketing, creating knowledge, but a lot of it was also about how my students kind of turned it into how to be successful, how to achieve their goals. It wasn't exactly the direction I expected, but it was all on point and within our goals and objectives. The exit survey strongly had great results here. They better understood sustainability, how that was relevant. More importantly, perhaps, they better understood English department goals, being able to interact with sources of information and evaluate them. As I said earlier, we got to use, I already mentioned that, so Kenneth Watt. Why is he such a big deal? We had great examples, a tremendous example. Read that, pause this video, read that sometime. But really, if you read that quote, talking about how slave owners didn't get to choose to hold slaves, Nazis didn't get to decide which Jews got, no, yes, they totally did decide which Jews got to live. It happened in collaborative work. A group of students wrote this, and another group of students got to point out how this was an awful quote. And Ben Shapiro may not be the best, it isn't necessarily a good expert to appeal to appeal to authority. But even if he was, this quote, the context doesn't lend to your argument very well. And I got some feedback from students that's relevant. I want to rate your professors, and I think it's valuable. The criticisms I got was it not clear enough, but I don't just feed students information. They're not spoon-fed. I want to light a fire under them. I want to get them excited. I want them to determine things and teach me. And getting them to do what they think is my job is a lot more work than they think. Another lesson I learned how to do a reverse image search because students kept pulling up images from the internet. And I said, no, you can't just do that. And well, but if we pixelate it, and if we add text, and if we crop it, we're transforming it, and that's fair use. Checked with Mark Swales again. Nah, probably not. But I learned how to do a reverse image search and found out this image of a mother and child is taken from an image of a man and child. It was cropped to obscure the gender of the mother, and this is what gets you. This particular image gets used on a lot of pro-life work, and I learned that you can't always catch lightning in a bottle. I learned this first. I think I started to learn it with Jay, and I had to learn it over and over again. Sometimes magic happens in the classroom. And sometimes having a video camera going interferes with that. With my guest speaker, it went really well, and she was on camera, but afterwards she said, listen, the priority was honesty there. She was very honest and open, and it's hard to get that and have people go on record at the same time. I can't always record everything. Maybe I tried to videotape too much stuff. Documenting things changes what you observe. I need to make myself more clear, but, that's something that's an eternal struggle. Because I am student-centered, which means I want students to do the work. And the students kind of want teacher-centered, top-down, sit and get, because that's kind of what they're more familiar with.